And remember, never, never, never get embarrassed when a nurse asks you to go into this room with her, take off all your clothes. Do not be embarrassed, because that's what happens. Alright, every single time I was admitted to a mental hospital, for some weird reason, I always came in this weird sense of curiosity and embarrassment. And that's something that happens on every single one of my hospitalizations. And I realized that it's a bit strange given my personality. I'm not a very outgoing person. I love to talk, but only talk with people who I genuinely want to talk with. Like, I'm very selective when it comes to people I like and don't like. But regardless, you're going to be forced to be with certain people during your entire hospitalization, you know, whether that be a roommate or whether that be other patients, whether that be the doctors, the PAs, the therapists, psychologists, the clinical psychologists, because apparently there's a difference between psychologists and clinical psychologists. You're also going to have psychiatrists, and then you're going to have a head psychiatrist, and then you might get interviewed. Well, you're definitely going to be interviewed on intake. But for me, I was interviewed a separate time with some medical students. But that's aside the point. How did I feel when I was first admitted? Well, when I say admitted, I mean actually got to the main hospital, because there were times where I was in a separate hospital while I was being processed. And I'm not talking about that time, because that time was a very different time. I'm talking about the time where I was physically in the main hospital. And so the first time I went in, I was disgusted. I hadn't showered in forever. I hadn't brushed my teeth in forever. I haven't combed my hair. I haven't done anything related to hygiene in the past how many hours? In the past day, you know? Because not even for the past over 20 hours, I hadn't had any hygiene. I wasn't able to take a shower, wasn't able to brush my teeth, wasn't able to use the bathroom and use soap, because the bathrooms didn't have soap. So I didn't go number 2. I didn't take a shit because I needed soap to wash my hands. It's part of the OCD part of me, and it's also just common fucking sense. But when I was in the first hospital, and we were doing introductions, I remember I was like, yo, hello. I said my name, my age, why I'm there, and I was like, okay, I hope we can get along. And it was interesting because the other patients were like, "Whoa, your name's so cool! Your name's so cool! Are you like that's like a superhero name?" And I was like, I'm sitting here embarrassed. I was like, yeah. But right after that, they just finished with group, which is group therapy. They just finished with group, and so we went outside to this little play area. It's a basketball court. We went to this basketball court and we started playing basketball. I didn't play basketball. I was sitting by myself in a corner like a loser because I didn't know how to interact with any of these other patients. I was nervous, I was anxious, I was embarrassed, and for a big part of me, I was ashamed that what I looked like, ashamed that, I wasn't able to keep up my hygiene, and when these guys first met me, I was absolutely disgusting. But yeah, that was the first time. I eventually started warming up to the patients, and it was a very easy process when you have the magic of comedy. Because if you don't really know much about these situations where you're in a mental hospital, you need to have a certain amount of comedy and lightheartedness, or else you're gonna end up super depressed and you're gonna stay there for even longer, which is what happened to a lot of patients, and they got sent from acute into residential, which was something that I almost ended up in, and it's something I don't like to talk about. Okay, so second time after processing in a padded room, I was sent up to the psychiatric ward. And in the psychiatric ward, when I first got there, I was fresh. I had eaten, I had brushed my teeth, I had taken a shower, I had clean clothes on, I was able to take a shit with soap. Well, not with soap, but I was able to wash my hands with soap after taking a shit. So that was good. But I walked in on the after processing, after the little interview thingy, and after they examined my body, they set me up, and the other patients were just starting group therapy, and I just walked in because one of the PA's, psychiatric assistants, was like, "Yo, that's where the other patients are. Go in there, just introduce yourself to the therapist, tell him that I'm a new patient." So I did, and I sat by myself, I just stared at the table. It was it wasn't as good as the last hospitalization I was in. It was a very sad place, you know, because psychiatric hospitals, they're generally not colorful. They're generally not really happy. They're kind of sad and dour, and there's a lot of gray. I sat by myself, and I only really started getting to know people when I would eat meals with them. I was about to say eat lunch, but we ate every meal with each other. And the shocking thing about this second hospitalization is there were girls also in the same ward as us, because in the last hospital we were separated between boys and girls, male and female. We were separated, and we ended up in different wards. And for this second hospitalization, there weren't any separate gender-based wards. It was just, oh, you have mental problems? Yeah, go inside. There's a bunch of other girls and dudes, and you're gonna be with them. And I remember one of the patients talking about, oh, I want to leave, but if I leave, I'll probably end up at Kahi because all the beds here are gonna be. Oh shit! I said Kahi. Oh, whatever. Who cares? That's the name of the first hospital I went to. But one of the patients was like, oh yeah, I want to go to Kahi, and I want to talk with some of my friends who got sent there. And I was sitting here thinking, I was like, well, you might not be able to talk to him because it's separated between guys and girls. And she was like, yeah, that makes sense. But my third hospitalization, that was fun because all I did was sit by myself for days until one day one of the patients was like, hey, you know, we set goals in the beginning of the day, right? And my goal was to get to know people. But I was too nervous and anxious and socially awkward that I didn't actually walk up to anybody and eat with anybody. So what I did, I just sat at a chair by myself, staring off into nowhere. And that was sad. I can start to see there's a pattern coming up. But one of the patients was like, hey, you'll come over here. And I easily made friends with the magical comedy. I would say a lot of Bo Burnham jokes and John Mulaney jokes. And he was a very offensive comedian. George Carlin, I think that's his name. I use a lot of his jokes. And that's a quick way to get into people by showing, oh, hey, I'm a funny guy, funny dude. But yeah, that was my experience with intake. That was my experience first walking into a mental hospital. It's a strange story, you know. There's a big pattern between each of the hospitalizations, but I genuinely think if I were to be, sorry, there's a helicopter outside. If I were to genuinely be readmitted, I probably wouldn't be as scared and awkward. I'd probably be so much more active. Yeah. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed watching this video. Got a new jacket, love it. And I'll catch you in the next one. If you're in an emergency, I have emergency links down below, suicide hotline, all that kind of stuff. And I also have my DMs, I have my social medias down below. DM me if you want, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. And remember, never, never, never get embarrassed when a nurse asks you to go into this room with her and take off all your clothes. Do not be embarrassed, because that's what happens. Alright, I'll catch you in the next one. Ahoy ho, malama pono.